I'm Amy from moonmindology.com, and today I'm talking about the new government in the United Kingdom. So it's all been kicking off over here. I've already covered Keir Starmer and his Sun Pluto conjunction, and I think that's going to cause him a lot of problems throughout this premiership. So let's have a peek at the opening of this government, as I think this is the most accurate time that I actually have. And don't forget, you can get a reading with me at moonmindology.com. So I've got 12 p.m. Monday, 15th of June 2024. How do I know it's midday? So take a peek at these photos here. So unless they changed the clocks, which I doubt, the opening of the government pretty much took place on the dot at midday. The ascendant is a typical one for the UK government, as you know, it's related to a lot of openings. Virgo, and that pomp and pageantry that you see, I don't think that's just for fun. Those are rituals that are carefully chosen, so don't be fooled. And I want to find out why there are so many protests kicking off, and also, is this something that's going to last for the duration, or is it actually going to calm down? So we have a good idea of what Starmer is all about, and you know, he's about the rich with his 11th house and his alliances, but how does the opening date impact the country? So K2 is in the first, and this is really telling for the identity of the nation, as this is how we appear to others. And there's a reserved nature here and a lack of confidence. But K2 is also fire and victimhood, so there can be a link to drugs, mind-altering substances, and this is the planet of confusion. K2 is very strong in Virgo, so there is intelligence, there's spirituality, but K2 is it's blind, but it can reveal the truth, and there's a creativity as well, but yeah, it's also isolation. K2 aspects Jupiter very closely, and it gets the aspect back as well. So this is going to be very intent for paranoid thinking, fear-mongering, but faith can be strong as well as religion. So there's also a problem with children, which I can see, and there have been a couple of cases recently with children being killed or hurt. And I do think that is something that is going to remain for the entirety of this government, unfortunately. Mercury and Venus, they're in the 11th. Mercury is media, schools and news, and with the planet Venus of opulent wealth, the mega rich and culture, and this is in the 11th, so there are links to civic organisations, foreign contracts, alliances, aid, and of course the stock exchange, not the sock exchange where you're missing odd socks go off to. That's not what I'm talking about. That's another dimension. But anyways, so lots of money is going to be going to foreign alliances, and the rich will be doing very well during this time. The media will be doing their bidding, of course, and the main investors. So here we go. Cancer, the sign it's in is all about cities, towns, buildings, housing, as well as doing up cities, but we already know that. And so there's going to be a lot of money put into the infrastructure there. The rich are going to support this as well. And Venus and the Moon are in a Parivartana and Yoga, so this is going to make Venus really strong. It's going to be good for wealth, the economy, creates Dana Yoga by ownership, as well as the links to Mercury, so that's positive. Venus does get a significant aspect from Pluto, and this can create a lot of passion and lust, as well as power struggles. So there can be backwards and forwards with power as well. So it's push and pull, potentially between the government and the public. And then there's also a Raja Yoga here. So there's a lot of power in allies, but it can also indicate that people are equally unified. And there's been a sudden unity in the UK, and I believe that in this chart, the 11th house is part of the influence of this, and it gets an aspect from Rahu, so it is afflicted, and Rahu creates intensity and distortion, so there can be obsessions, urgency, and it can impact extreme desires and views as well, so watch out for extreme views. The moon is in the second, and this luckily misses any affliction or problems, and it's in that Parivartana yoga, as I mentioned earlier, with Venus, and this makes them both stronger. So there can be problems with social structure and culture, as well as finances and wealth. And there's a bit of a shake within, or there's a bit of a shake-up within the stability here. But I do think that the public will generally be strong in their ability to get what they want. This is your greater population, and there can be some water contracts or some kind of money made through liquids that is for the good of society, or it could even be oil, but the people are going to be supportive of the farms and agriculture. The moon is in Swati, and this is about being adaptable and moving with the wind, but there's also a vulnerability to almost break under such force, and the public may well be quite temperamental, and so far that's been quite true. The sun in the 10th, and it's sitting on the fixed star Pollux. The sun is the leader and the royalty, so analysing this planet really does tell us about them. And in the 10th, this is extra authority over society and the law, because they are very, very powerful. And the 10th also goes to the 11th, which means a lot of power is being given to allies as well. Starmer has already openly told the public that he is more interested in listening to Davos than he is your representative MPs. Your local MPs that you voted for is not of any interest to dear old Starmer. In Gemini, so he's going to be interested in communications, media, trade, and I'm sorry to moan, but he hasn't even been power in for a month, and he's been going on holiday, and this is the impression that he's given off. And I think calling all people that are protesting far right, I think he's out of touch. Not everybody that doesn't agree with you is far right or fascist, and equally fascism can also be left wing as well, don't forget that. But blanket statements, I think, like America a few years ago, we have to be careful of blanket statements, because they can upset people, create a massive divide and a massive rift. And what we need right now is not for leaders to be creating division between the people. We have to find unity together, especially in the UK, where there is a lot of unhappiness going on. People are disillusioned. We have to find a way to unite. And I'd say that for all countries as well, where there is an underlying dissatisfaction going on, because if you fragment your population, what do you think your protest's going to do? You're just going to spend more time fighting between you, like we've seen, than fighting the government, which are the bad guys. So yeah, although the sun is sitting on Pollux, this is the immortal twin, and he's known for his fighting skills. And I think, at the moment we've got some of the most violent fixed stars activated here. And as much as, there is a courage and ruthlessness in this fixed star, equally there's murder, calamity, disgrace, and a bit of death, which doesn't sound that great to me. And then we've got the sun is at 29 degrees. So it can be a little bit arrogant because it's got that weakness there. Rahu is in the 7th, which is all about opposition, foreign affairs, disputes, and enemies. With it being in Pisces, it enforces the meaning of foreigners as well as crime and public welfare. And Rahu also means foreigners, big business, heretics, phobias, and obsession. So I think that there's going to be a lot of protests and a lot of crime in the streets just in general for the whole duration of the government. And it's really going to be there is something to do with people from foreign lands, whether they are illegal or not. I think there's things going on. And, if one group open the doors, the others will want to close the doors. Everything has an equal and opposite reaction, and more extreme and intense it is on one end, it is on the other as well. So, of course, Neptune's sitting on Sheet, which is an unfortunate star, and it's associated with unfortunate situations such as drowning, floods, shipwrecks, problems with large machinery as well. And Neptune being here is really going to, I think, make people feel confused and crazy. And this is a planet associated with mass delusion as well. And, you know, it could be a sign of potential civil disobedience and civil conflict going on within the UK. But hopefully it doesn't get that bad. Hopefully you just get the odd rear up here and there, which we've already seen. Saturn is strong in the 6th house, and in Keir Starmer's chart he has Ketu and Saturn conjunction, which I believe is the intention to penalise the elderly by means of targeting them and removing some form of social security. But in this chart, Saturn is in a great position and it's really strong. So this is going to give power in order to defeat enemies and actually help workers. So this is your agriculture, your elderly, construction and mining as well. But Saturn is retrograde, so it's very, very prominent in the sky. So either the people will revolt and protect the elderly and the workers, or the new changes aren't going to impact them as much as we initially think. So there could be economic problems though, cuts in welfare, which is a high probability with this. Pluto is in the 5th, and this is good for art and creativity, but it can also control jovial activities as well, so entertainment, stock, public happiness, and you know, it can feel somewhat to some degree that it is under control, it's corrupted, or the government is doing something within this time. And it's also very heavily influenced by big business as well. So then moving on to the ninth house, Mars is about the military, police and conflict, and it's sitting with Uranus. This is all about sudden change, riots, revolts, aviation and anarchy. And quite frankly, this combination is terrible. And then to make matters worse, you have Jupiter, which then brings in the judicial system, religious movements and beliefs. And it's in the 9th house of law, airlines. And you know, it's got 2 pointers in the chart now for law and airlines. Universities, foreign affairs, constitution, which, you know, we don't really have in the UK. And then there's also politics in general. So I think that there's going to be a lot of law changes. I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be curfews put in place, and equally people will revolt as well. In Taurus, the main concern is actually economic and as well as social stability. And if that isn't bad enough, Mars and Uranus, they're sitting on that lovely fixed star, a goal of losing one's head. And, you know, the state of this house, it could even be as extreme as a literal beheading. But let's hope that, you know, it doesn't come to that. But at the very least, people will be crazy. Airlines, aviation, as I said, there's 2 pointers here for the meaning of that. And, you know, in this portion of the sky, what does it mean? Well, if we don't have people screaming in the streets, foreign military could be flying over the UK and doing something with its weapons. And as this is in Taurus, there could be problems with your food and your produce. Crops could be destroyed, set on fire. There could be an airplane crash in a crop field or something like that, but let's hope not. You know, as I said, food shortage as well, but I think what needs to happen is these need to be activated by dashas. So let's quickly nip over to the dashas and see what we have. So this government started off in Rahu Venus, and this is going to really impact the economy, laws, and also alliances. So this is also going to be stock exchange, and this can blow things out of proportion for a while. So that could go up. Of course, Venus also rules the 9th house, which is where Mars and Uranus are as well, in the 2nd house, and that's where your public is as well. So Rahu sitting with Neptune, creating confusion. I don't think that riots and protests are actually going to wholeheartedly die down. I know they've calmed down a little bit over here, but I think everybody's sort of like sitting there thinking, okay, well, when we're going to make our next protest? I wouldn't be surprised if, you find most weekends there will be some kind of protests of some shape or form. Whether or not it's going to be publicised, people are unhappy and people are very angry. And as we have the 11th and 7th involved, this could spill out into disagreements with other countries as well. And this Dasha sequence ends in November 2025, and then we move into Rahu Sun. Rahu, again, it pulls in that fixed star sheet, but also the sun sitting on Pollux. So this is not a great combination either, and this can get very loud and extreme. The sun rules the 12th, which can cause endings and loss. So we may have a reduction in protesting, but foreign leaders can cause issues during this time, and we may have disagreements happening in other nations that is directly affecting the leader. Then this ends in October 2026, and the country enters Rahu Moon. And I think this is really going to bring some alliances that people are not so happy about. And it can also impact the stability as well of the economy. And the public is still going to feel controlled by the rich, but I think it's going to be a less turbulent time. I think that might get better. But you're going to still have people who are unhappy, people are feeling paranoid. You could have fear-mongering, because that Rahu really does make people feel quite paranoid and crazy. It creates obsessions as well, so you could see a lot of that. And then in 2028 we enter Rahu Mars, and you know, in April 2028, this is when we could really see that 9th house kicking off. This is going to be a goal under the microscope, as well as Mars and Uranus. We could see rioting, protests, violence, and even problems with aviation. But again, people could be losing their heads, losing composure, and there can be a lot of problems. So, you know, I think being wary of this government chart, checking that you have no links to it, checking that you have no links personally during that period of time, during the transits. You know, I'd just be really, really careful in the UK, because things are a bit crazy right now. But yes, it's an interesting time to be an astrologer. But I'm just going to quickly go over the transits as well, just to talk about what's going to happen in terms of transits for the UK for the next year. So 23rd of October 2024, Uranus transits Mars, and this could bring a lot of upsets and people losing control over themselves because of goal. And this is an overarching theme in the chart, and I think this time is going to be significant. There could be laws passed suddenly that people don't like, or changes. Keep an eye out for that. And remember, Taurus is the sign of the country's stability, wealth and agriculture, so there could be changes that impact farmers, which make them upset. And honestly, I don't know what you think of Jeremy Clarkson. He's quite a controversial figure, but he's quite a popular figure as well. And the fact that he is doing a farming show, and he is a big name that's representing such an important group of people, I think that is really going to be helpful in whatever happens next. 16th of February 2025, Saturn return. So this acts as a maturity point, and for this new government, this could be a time where it starts to get on track, but there could be problems with enemies, service industry, and you know, there could be issues there, because Saturn is all about discipline and order and structure, which is the maturity point, but it also has a problem with decay, so that's got that negative aspect there as well. 16th of April 2025, Saturn aspects natal Mars. Now, Mars is sitting on that fixed star goal, as I said, so there's something crazy. And people could really be losing their heads at this time, and Saturn may contribute to that. The problem is you can also see some politically motivated arrests potentially as well, police brutality, and I think that's something that we could see in 2025. 29th of April 2025, Uranus transits Mars. Again, this protests, riots, people going crazy, law changes, political arrests. A goal has a tendency to lose its head like Medusa. And as I've said before, Neptune and Uranus are both sitting on fixed stars that have to do with Medusa, and they are linked to Perseus. And I was doing a little bit more research and found that Perseus was meant to be a descendant of the Persians. So I wonder whether there is something that may happen with Iran this year. In 2025. You know, these myths are really bizarre things and the way they work, and there is a cryptic nature to them. So sometimes you have to pick out those odd meanings and just run with it. 24th of July, we have Rahu transiting Saturn whilst Jupiter aspects the moon. So this is a really busy day, high emotions, and in the dasha of Rahu and Venus, Rahu could actually bring some kind of disease, poison, pollution or something like that. And, you know, it could cause problems for people. And the services may be overwhelmed as well. So, you know, there could be problems with the elderly population, but also land. So, yeah, it's not jolly, but it is what it is. And hopefully it's not quite as abysmal as it seems. We should have some more Jupiter aspects going after 2025, so it will be better. But it's just the first year. I think any new government, your first year is there's a lot of uphill struggles and whatnot. But they picked the opening of the government a terrible day, just terrible day. I don't know why they did that. Maybe Rishi Sunak did that on purpose. He is Hindu, so maybe he was like, how about we rig this for the worst government because we know we're going to lose, which is quite a crazy game to play. But thank you very much for listening today, and I'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Bye.